Okay. So I call this talk originally Weapons of Mass Instruction. I want to tell you where the idea came from. I got an award from a foundation, I think 4 years ago in Washington, D.C. And when I went down there to get it, there were other people receiving the same award, and one of them was an 11-year-old Chinese immigrant boy named Andrew Su, TSU, from the Seattle area, 11 years old. He was getting his award for having sequenced genes held in common between mice and human beings. So I looked down at Andrew. He just was a little slip of a guy, and I said, how did you get interested in sequencing mouse genes, Andrew? Now, you would think that he was the son of some holders of university chairs, but in fact, he was the son of waiters. I mean, menials in the American economic system. His first language wasn't English. He was from Taiwan. And he had won the Washington State Science Fair, not the school science fair, the Washington State Science Fair with his gene sequencing. So we were getting, and I said, okay, so how come you weren't playing baseball? And he said, my grandfather told me a story when I was little. Mind you, just an 11-year-old kid saying this to me. But you're about to hear about 4-year-old kids in a few minutes. But this 11-year-old kid said, when I was little, my grandfather taught me how to train fleas. Now, oddly enough, I knew a lot about trained fleas. I mean, when I came to New York City from Pittsburgh back in the early 1950s, there actually was a flea circus on 42nd Street and Broadway. You had to get down 2 stories under the street. It was called Hubert's Flea Circus. And by God, for a quarter, Hubert would stick his arm out and feed the fleas first, and then they would swing on trapezes, they would draw little chariots, they would fence with swords. It was just uncanny. So I had a brief affection for trained fleas, and I discovered that in all the great courts of Asia, and some of them in Europe, you weren't anybody unless you had trained fleas. So what did Andrew teach me about trained fleas that I didn't know? He said, you can't train fleas until you break their will. Okay? How do you break a flea's will, Andrew? He said, if you fill a Petri dish, one of those little shallow dishes used in chemistry and biology and things, if you fill a Petri dish with fleas, they will instantly jump out and head off in every direction because they have an agenda of their own. He said, but to eliminate their personal agendas, you put a lid on the Petri dish and you go away for 2 hours. When you come back, they've hurt themselves so badly leaping to get out of the dish and never being able to budge that lid an inch, that when you take the lid off, picture this in your head, because this is life-changing. Not one of the fleas will try to get out of the dish. He said, now they're in a state where they can be trained. Instantly upon him finishing that sentence, I knew what I had been hired to do for 30 years. I was the lid on that dish. And as long as I and my colleagues could frustrate the personal agendas often enough very few of them, if any, would survive. And they then could be conditioned to the purposes of, let's say, management. Let's call it management. So I saw that one of the prime weapons of mass instruction was this ability to frustrate in individual initiative.
One of these stories with a punchy bit at the end, and it's not a moralizing story or a whimsical or a sentimentalizing story. It's just a story. And I've tarted it up a bit. See what you think. She kissed me like a child, fresh and peckish like a child. She was wild as little strawberries, but though she kissed me as a child would do, she clung on a little longer than she needed to. I did it for a dare, go and kiss her for a dare. In the middle of the village square, she was as 17ish as the month of May, and her daddy was a butcher in a pie and pudding's way. This little skirmish of a kiss was importunately witnessed by the twitching whiskers and the bulging eyes of a couple of the local ladies who were passing by. Couple of the local ladies who were passing by. Misunderstood, this pretty kiss misunderstood by the squinting sisterhood, and thus the whisper went from pinafore to pinafore, every tut more grievous than the well-I never before, until her daddy heard, her demented daddy heard every grisly whispered word, and stepping fresh from the slaughterhouse the crimson butcher ran, the steam around his shoulders, still a cleaver still in his hand. Well, you may buy my pies, he cries, my puddings, buy my pies. Get your whipper-snapping eyes from off the juicy beauty of my daughter, who is a tidbit far too tasty for the lips of the likes of you, likes of you, likes of you. Far too tasty for the lips of the layback likes of you. Swung his cleaver high, swung his whistling cleaver high, and his cry was agonizing. I shall follow King Solomon's decision, inasmuch as I'm out to split you down the middle, easy, collarbone to crotch. But with a single bound, his daughter with a springy bound flung her arms and legs around me, singing, split all you wish to, daddy, let the cleaver fall, and you shall split me likewise, precious tidbits and all. I am my own to give, nobody else but mine to give. Perhaps I'll give it to this whippersnapper, backbone to belly button, from tip to toe, from nipples up above to bushy triangle below, down below, down below. My tangled diamond down below. Which came as news to me, both to the butcher man and me. But who was I to disagree? What with my nose in her breastbone, her haunches in my hand, and a chopper in the offing, there was a lot to understand. The cleaver never fell, the jealous cleaver never fell. And although my eyes were elsewhere, by a pressing little message of her elbows and thighs, she let me know her daddy'd gone there, tears in his eyes. She kissed me like a child, fresh and peckish like a child. She was wild as little strawberries, but though she kissed me as a child would do, she clung on a little longer than she needed to, needed to, needed to. On a little longer than she needed to do.
Okay, whoa! Here I am in New York City, and I'm doing just fine for a virgin. I'm blonde, I got blue eyes, I'm funny, I get laughs. I look great in a Dior suit. I got pretty good looking legs, and I'm the best kisser in town. And that seemed to be quite enough for a lot of the hot shots in New York City. And then there was this boy in my acting class, Marlon Brando. Every single girl at the dramatic workshop of the New School for Social Research was in love with Marlon Brando, not me. And Marlon Brando dated every single girl at the dramatic workshop of the New School for Social Research, not me. Of course, I was still 13 years shy of age 30, so I don't know, who knows, maybe the word was out. Up at the convent, oh, I guess this was about 2 months into the first semester of the dramatic workshop, my new best friend, Reverend Mother Benziker, and aside from my roommate, Yvonne Rogers, Reverend Mother was the only person in the whole world that I had told just how I really felt about Marlon Brando. And she was in her office one afternoon on the 5th floor, and I was in the parlor on the 1st floor learning lines, and I heard the telephone ring, and Reverend Mother Benziker answered it, and then she tied up her skirts and ran down 4 flights of stairs to the parlor. Elaine, it's for you. Elaine, it's him. I ran up 4 flights of stairs, 3 steps at a time. Hello? Oh, hi, Marlon. Fine. You? Tomorrow night? You want? Oh, well, I'd have to. Well, it's just at the. Marlon, can you hang on for just a minute? Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now at the hour of our death. Amen. What time? Sounds good. That sounds good. Yes, well, looks like I'll see you then. Yes, right. You bet. Right. Bye-bye.
Each and every one of us shall pay on demand. Our part of sacrifice, knowing that all together we're getting ever closer to the new being whose figure is about to appear. Whose figure is about to appear and fly. Well, there's got to be a way. Reclaim tomorrow. Let them eat you today. The way out is through the door. How come nobody uses it? The way out is through the door. How come nobody uses it? How come nobody uses it? Well, there has got to be a way. Reclaim tomorrow. I don't let them eat you today. I don't let them eat you today. Resistance will grow stronger. Not to bother me. I do the end. Not to bother me. Where there's a will, there's got to be a way. Reclaim tomorrow. Eat you today. Don't let them eat you today. Let it be like heart. Well, take the chance. My back's against the
Well, what do you know? Oh my God, what do you know about that? What do you know about? Now, wait a minute. What'll it be? What'll it be? Italian. That's it. Italian. Italian. A small, intimate Italian restaurant. Red wine and candlelight and some music. And later, maybe, a ride in one of those buggies in Central Park. At midnight, maybe. Oh, God, who knows? Marlon Brando took me to a Methodist church. He took me to a Jewish synagogue. He took me to a Church of Christ the Zionist. He took me to the public library. He took me to a Chinese restaurant, and he took me to a strip joint. And at this strip joint, a tall redhead took off every stitch of her clothes, and I burst into tears. I think I was a lot younger than I thought I was. And then Marlon took me for a nightcap. His apartment was a 3-flight walk-up on 12th Street. And we got up there, and I, God, I was so... And he disappeared right off the bat into the bathroom. And he had this cat, and the cat was yowling. And I called out, Marlon, what's the matter with your cat? And he called back, she's in heat. And I called back, should I open the window? Yes, I was. I was a lot younger than I thought I was. I don't think anybody's ever been as young as I was that night. Nobody. Never. Not ever. And then Marlon reappeared out of the bathroom in his pajamas. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And at 20 minutes past 2, I was on the 5th Avenue bus heading uptown. They ran both ways then. And it was Well, what was it? It was 3 a.m. by now. Poor Mother Benziker. She had to put on her entire nun's habit to come downstairs and let me in. And from that morning on, till almost the close of the season of Erwin Piscotter's summer theater in Sayville, Long Island, Marlon Brando did not speak to me. No, I mean, not one word. I was scared. And I got brave one day and I asked him, Marlon, what is the matter? And Marlon said, Elaine, I want two things from you, silence and distance. I ran to Piscotter. Mr. Piscotter, I want to go home. If you do, Ellen, Mr. Brando is the winner. We closed the season with Noel Coward's Private Lives. I got the lead. I was a stunning, almost 18-year-old, slightly confused Amanda. That next season in New York, my convent days were over. I was living at the Barbizon Hotel for Women. And it was a late Sunday afternoon and my telephone rang and I answered it and it was Marlon. And he asked me to meet him for a drink at George Hertz's Bar and Grill on Lexington Avenue. And I did. He ordered 2 Manhattan cocktails. And he just stared at his. And no one was speaking. And then he drank his. And then he crushed the cocktail glass in his hand. And his hand was bleeding. And he looked at me. And he said, Elaine, I'm sorry. Well, life went on.
Alabama's got me so upset. Tennessee made me lose my rest. Everybody knows about Mississippi. God damn! Alabama's got me so upset. California's made me lose my rest. Everybody knows about Mississippi. God damn! Can't you see it? I know you can feel it. It's all in the air. I can't stand this pressure much longer. Somebody say a prayer. Alabama's got me so upset, and Tennessee's made me lose my rest. Everybody knows about Mississippi. God damn. Hound dogs on my trail, school children sitting in jail, black cat crossed my path. I think every day's gonna be my last. Lord, have mercy on this land of mine. We all gonna get it in due time. I don't belong here, I don't belong there. I've even stopped believing in prayer. Don't tell me, I'll tell you. Me and my people just about do. I've been there, so I know. They keep on saying, go slow. That's what they say, go slow. That's what they say, go slow. That's what's the trouble. Slow. Washing the windows. Slow. Picking the cotton. Slow. When nothing but rotten. Slow. We're too damn lazy. Slow. Our thinking's crazy. Slow. Where am I going? What am I doing? I don't know. I don't know. Just try to do your very best. Stand up, be counted with all the rest. Everybody knows about Mississippi. picket lines, school boycotts. They try to say it's a communist plot, but all I want is equality for my sister, my brother, my people, and me. My people and me. You lied to me all these years. You told me to wash and clean my ears and talk real fine, just like a lady. And you'd stop calling me Sister Sadie. No, but my country's full of lies. We all gonna die and die like flies. 'Cause I don't trust nobody anymore. They keep on saying, go slow. Yeah, that's what they say. Go slow. Well, that's just the trouble. Desegregation, mass participation, unification, do things gradually will bring more tragedy. Why don't you see it? Why don't you feel it? I don't know. You don't have to live next to me. Just give me my equality. Everybody knows about Mississippi. Everybody knows about Alabama. Everybody knows about Mississippi. Gone down. That's it.
More natural than a head ballet, as performed by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band, who are much more than a pop group whose heads are quite easily turned. They're a pop group that specialize in gags rather than gimmicks, but as you'll see later, it's more than a question of shaking their heads at convention. Sophisticated youth has taken the Bonzos up in a big way, though some of us might think they're just head cases.
Couldn't work so long as you really have an illiterate group who don't really know what's going on and are leaving it to a power structure which has all the intelligence information and makes decisions without people really knowing why. So I say we're coming to this absolute new moment when it could be that a phenomenal democracy really might work. There are logical things that can be and should be done for all of humanity, which a democracy might really seem very spontaneous, and that's what you just do. Now, with the information proliferation that is going on around the world, this could become a possibility. And I think that is the moment we're really coming into. You're going to have to find out what needs to be done. How do you organize yourself to accommodate going from 1% of humanity to 99% of humanity who are now going to have to live and double or triple their lifespans, really give them a chance to enjoy the earth. And that is the design responsibility. So when you hear everybody out here talking about ecology and so forth, it's because the architects are not doing anything. If you could sit around and draw some pictures, ought to feel, if I get pretty, that's enough. You don't ever have to worry about beauty or pretty, because if you really understand your problem, if you solve it correctly, so life really goes on. This is regeneration of life, and you do it most economically, so economically it is realizable. It always comes out beautiful. That's why a rose is beautiful. It is just one of those parts of the great regenerative process where there is an a priori design of the universe that had the universe working. You want to be a part of that. You can't miss beauty. That part, your joy will be there. Your joy will be just as much as it is with a beautiful sunset.
This song's about some women in a prison in Northern Ireland. This is called Armagh. torture, we're a civilized nation. We're avoiding any confrontation. We don't torture. We don't torture. We don't torture. We don't torture. Hostages in Iran, a daily news. Forget about the Vietnam, you can ignore the petty to their eyes, to women in our jail. Political prisoners here at home. The British state's got nothing to lose. It's our subjects that are left alone. We're a civilized nation. We're avoiding any confrontation. We don't torture. We don't torture. Alice crimes without information. She gets no sanitation. She drives the ship on her wars. She's feeling cold and sick. She gets the cold outside. She's relaxed for the next interrogation. Biggest legal on her back. It's a better position for internal examination. A better position for giving information. Information. We don't torture. We don't torture. Got squatted and she gets a beating, bleeding and wounded. She stopped eating as her baby gets nothing to pay. They came and took her baby away. We don't touch her. 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 We're a civilized nation. We're avoiding any confrontation. We don't touch her. We don't touch her. We don't touch her. We don't touch her. We don't touch her.
6 to 8 months later, on the set of a TV sitcom, I was lucky enough to land in L.A. The AD informed me one morning I had an overseas phone call from Les Avants, Switzerland. Stretcher, I've written a musical for New York in the fall. The musical is called Sail Away. There's a part in it for you. It is not the lead, but it is a very, 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 very good part. Oh, my God, Mr. Coward. What if I'm not free? What if they pick up this sitcom in the fall? Stretcher, I have seen the sitcom.
My next number requires a great deal of turgid tropical atmosphere, and thanks to the courtesy of the American Stagehands Union, I've been allowed to move my own scenery. Now this is a song about a lady from South America, a fairly disagreeable lady who throughout her long and checkered existence resolutely refused to dance. Her name was Nina. Senorita Nina from Argentina knew all the answers. Although her relatives and friends were perfect dancers, she swore she'd never dance a step until she died. She said, I've seen too many movies, and all they prove is too idiotic. They all insist that South America's exotic, whereas it couldn't be more boring if you tried. She added firmly that she hated the sound of soft guitars beside a still lagoon. She also positively stated that she could not abide a southern moon. And she could not refrain from saying that idiotic swaying and those flat guitarists swaying were an interest to her race. and that she really couldn't face such international disgrace. She refused to begin when they requested it, and she made an embarrassing scene if anyone suggested it, for she detested it. Though no one ever could be keen, the little Nina, and quite a number of very eligible men who did the rumba. When they proposed her, she simply left them flat. She said that love should be impulsive, but not convulsive, and syncopation had a discouraging effect on procreation, and that she'd rather read a book, and that was that. Nina from Argentina despised the tango, although she never was the girl to let a man go. She wouldn't sacrifice her principles for sex. She looked with scorn on the gyrations of her relations who did the conga, and said that if she had to stand it any longer, she'd lose all dignity and wring their silly necks. She said that frankly she was blinded to all that over-advertised romantic charm. And then she got more bloody-minded and told them where to put their tropic palm. She said, I hate to be pedantic, but it drives me nearly frantic when I see that unromantic, sycophantic lot of sluts forever wriggling their guts. It drives me absolutely nuts. She declined to begin, though they besought her to. And in language profane and obscene, she cursed the man who taught her to. She cursed Cole Porter too. From this it's fairly clear that Nina, in her demeanor, was so offensive that when the hatred of her friends grew too intensive, she thought she'd better beat it while she had the chance. After some trial and tribulation, she reached the station and met a sailor who had acquired a wooden leg in Venezuela, and so she married him because he couldn't dance. The surely never could have been a more irritating girl than Nina. They never speak in Argentina of this degenerate bambina who had the luck to find romance, but resolutely wouldn't dare. She wouldn't dance.
This is the tale, this is the tale, this is the tale of Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale, Alan a Dale, Alan a Dale. This is the tale of Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale, Alan a Dale, yes, Alan a Dale. Oh, Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Ah, 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 ah. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale, yes, Alan a Dale. Oh, Alan a Dale. I'll tell you the tale, I'll tell you the tale, I'll tell you the tale of Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale, Alan a Dale, Alan a Dale, Alan a Dale. He'll tell us the tale, tell us the tale, he'll tell us the tale of Alan a Dale. Oh, Alan a Dale.
There have been many famous heroes in the history of mankind.
Some are born great, some achieve greatness.
Some have greatness thrust upon them, of whom by no means few have served to glorify the name of England's green and pleasant land.
But there is one whose claim to fame, by mention of his very name,
All other claims doth put to shame.
so if you would hear of untold glory,
Gather round and listen to my story.
Yes, Alan a Dale. Oh, Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Ah, 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 ah. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale. Alan a Dale.
You know, when you teach people to speak and think in academies, you've reduced their effectiveness to their associates there. So, yeah, no, we had some very productive experiments in mass literacy, including a phrase, a label that's vanished from use. There was constant talk of something called the active literacy. As long as you read well, you can develop original thinking, but you can't communicate it. But to be able to master spoken speech, you can talk to anybody and they can actually understand what you're saying, or written speech were known as the active literacies. The British government made those a crime, a prisonable offense to teach ordinary people the active literacies, not reading, because you want your flunkies to be able to read so they can follow your orders, so you can go and play golf or go fishing. But to actually communicate dissident thinking and writing, you can reach way beyond yourself. So the active literacies are, you find in the handful of elite private boarding schools, this tradition preserved. And in fact, in the academy tradition all over the world, there's a clear understanding that to be able to blink your eyes and knock off 300 words on anything at all, including a subject you know nothing about, is de rigueur. And so
this next one's called Les Bancs Publics, public benches. Those who know it will know that I've taken a little bit of liberty with the rhyme scheme in the chorus, just because it's really hard to say. Public bench, public bench. So this is my version of it. It's called The Public Benches, and it was written in 1953, and Brassens was influenced by a famous illustrator at the time named Raymond Penet, who used to draw pictures of people making out in public. So this is basically a song about PDA. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. People who see upside down think the benches around the sidewalks and the streets are made only for the impotent or the obese. But it's an absurdity, for in reality these venerable seats are there to accommodate young lovers when they meet. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 not giving the slightest damn for the honest people's stares. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 saying I love you pathetically. Look pretty good if you ask me. As they sit there holding hands, they speak of future plans of sky blue wallpaper that will dress the pretty walls of their nuptial bedside. They see what the future holds. He's smoking while she sews, their happiness assured, as they contemplate the naming of their firstborn child. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 not giving the slightest damn for the honest people's stares. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 saying I love you pathetically. Look pretty good if you ask me. When the noble what's their names happen to contemplate two of these so-and-sos, they never hesitate to toss out some venomous names. Though the entire family clan, the mom, the girl, the dad, the son, the Holy Ghost, wouldn't mind once in a while behaving just the same. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 not giving the slightest damn for the honest people's stares. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 saying I love you pathetically. Look pretty good if you ask me. When the heady months have ceased, when they will have appeased all of their burning dreams, when their sky grows heavy with the darkening clouds above, they will sadly come to see that it was on these streets, upon these famous seats, that they lived the greatest moments of their budding love. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 not giving the slightest damn for the honest people's stares. Young lovers kissing on park benches publicly, 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 saying I love you pathetically. Look pretty sweet if you ask me.
How do you teach these musicians to play your music?
Whip.
kind whip. No, I mean, a kind quip. No, a kind, well, how? You know, tape, you know, with the piano, a tape. And it's very hard work, and they'll probably all leave after I say this, but they don't get enough money.
Walking down a very narrow alley in the street, I saw an old man standing by a wall. Hastily I ran up to the old man, and I said to him in accents very small, "Get away from the wall, get away from the wall, get away from the wall." "Why," said the old man, "I'll tell you," said I. "It's my wall, it's my wall. That wall is my wall, my wall, my wall. That wall is my wall, my wall, my wall, my wall. That's all."
What groups like the B-52s, Blondie, Public Image Limited, and others have taken from Captain Beefheart is a very specific way of playing the guitars, playing drums, and structuring melodies.
They're taking your music, incorporating your music into their ideas, and it's making them a lot of money.
And they ought to give me some of that
That's
money.
right.
And they should give me some of the money. Now, everybody that you mentioned, I want my money. Pip, pip, pip. No, pip, 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 pip.
In plain view, it's Captain Beefheart.
Captain, don't you want to make money?
Sure.
Then why don't you go commercial?
I think either I'm too smart or too dumb. I don't know which.
The global economy continues to crash. Unemployment continues to spiral upwards. Government budgets are tightening dramatically in the wake of the global real estate bubble, a bubble that was specifically caused by banks being in complete control of the money supply instead of sovereign nations being in control of their national currency. That is the basic problem that we're facing, and until this problem is addressed, no amount of national austerity will stop this continuing cascade of negative economic events. England is trying the last thing there is to try. That's to dramatically cut government spending. They call it austerity. But to those of us in this room, we are all acutely aware that this austerity is not going to work. So it's our obligation to be able to say why this is not working and offer a reasonable solution, and we call that solution monetary reform. Monetary reform rests on two great inviolable pillars to me. The first one is that government borrowing must be forbidden. The second one is that banks must stop lending money they do not have. On the first one, the money power, the power to create the national money, is the most important power of a sovereign nation. In fact, it is the very definition of sovereignty. Nations do not have to borrow. Nations can create. The problem is that when a nation borrows from a bank, as Proverbs tells us, the borrower becomes servant to the lender. That is not sovereignty. So what is the result? The nation becomes addicted to the loans, and the banks then have power over it. So you no longer have a sovereign democracy. You have rule by banks. Political science has coined a term for this. It's called plutocracy. This is our primary problem with the economy of every nation today. They have allowed the national debt system to predominate. I say, no more national debt. Let's use the U.S. example today. Mr. Obama has stimulated the economy with about $2 trillion. But here's the problem. He's borrowed the money. So he's borrowed the money mostly from the big banks with interest attached. And then what has he done? He's simply turned around and given this money, given it back to the banks, supposedly to lend to us. But no, they can have a safer return merely by giving it to the Fed, and then the Fed pays them more interest. What kind of a system is this? It's insane. You couldn't design a worse possible system. This system just can't get any worse. Banks must stop lending money they do not have. This, as we all know, is called the fractional reserve lending system. It allows banks not to lend out twice as much money, not 3 times as much money, but 10 to 12 times as much money if they follow the rules. And as we know, with the results of the 2008 debacle, here at least in the United States, that the big banks were leveraged 50 and 52 to 1. Freddie and Fannie were leveraged 72 to 1. Goldman Sachs was leveraged 333 to 1. And then just about 6 months ago, Mr. Obama gets on TV and says, you know, I think we should just eliminate the reserve requirement altogether. So 333 to 1 is not enough. Only infinity will do. If you or I did this, we would be charged with fraud and/or counterfeiting. This fractional reserve system allows the banks to consolidate the wealth of the nation, and that combined with the national debt allows them to use that leverage to control the politics of the nation, because their power is protected and even enhanced. Again, this is the very definition of plutocracy. Tally sticks. In 1100 AD, King Henry I, the first Norman king of England, the son of William the Conqueror, had this exact same problem. That's why he created the tally stick system, because the goldsmiths had discovered that they could control the king by withdrawing their loans of gold money. Since their gold money was the most convenient money to use, trading grains for deerskins worked, but it was much less convenient. When they stopped lending out, there was less money in circulation and the overall supply of money dropped, and this caused a depression. The people didn't understand why there was a depression, so they blamed the king. So the goldsmiths got used to being able to bully the king by the mere threat of reducing the money supply. This is exactly what's going on today, just in a little more, and I stress, a little more sophisticated way. This power of the goldsmiths is bad enough when they only control the quantity of lending in the broad population, but it is further amplified when the sovereign himself is the borrower from the goldsmiths. The borrower shall be servant to the lender. So this is a two-pronged problem. When the wealthiest private citizens have control over the money supply, then the government is no longer sovereign. It is no longer the supreme power of the land and can no longer operate in the public interest. Government determined by the citizenry and directed by their elected representatives is still all that stands between us and serfdom. Rule by the rich. In today's world, the democratic aspects of government have been significantly eroded entirely and completely because government has lost these two great pillars of truth. They are borrowing from bankers. They have lost control over the quantity of the national money. Those are the two pillars. This is why we know that no amount of austerity or further government borrowing can possibly fix this problem. This week in England, I met with some wonderful younger folks, you saw one of them just now, who have latched on to these essential truths, both formally within the monetary reform community and last night, up-and-coming students at the London School of Economics. These young, inquiring minds realize that old ways aren't working, that something is very wrong. They can't get jobs the way their parents could just a generation earlier. They are now propelled through both self-interest as well as the normal idealism of young adults to start looking outside the box of their traditional training for something that will work. This is a great force, and this guy is taking advantage of it, and this guy is too. This is wonderfully encouraging. Now more than ever before, I am convinced that our reforms are inevitable and in the relatively near future. The truth of the manipulation of our money supply can no longer be hidden. These fresh young faces will supply sufficient youthful energy to finally break humanity free of the enslaving shackles of the debt money system. That's all. Any questions?